games. It's ScrubGames. Double up. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames.
How's it going, Scrub Gamers? Welcome back to another video here at ScrubGames, and today we have the next lot in our Understand How to Build series, where we go over all the leaders in a given set to help you understand how to build them to suit you and your playstyle. Now, we've covered the villainy leaders for the blue ones, and now we're going over the heroic ones, and the first one we're going to cover is Ahsoka Tano. So if you're interested in Ahsoka, then stay tuned, and also don't forget, you can also like, comment, and subscribe to keep up to date on my videos when they drop. And also by clicking that notification bell, you can get alerts when my videos do drop, so you can watch them there and then, or at a later time that suits you best. So, with that out of the way, let's get into it and help you understand how to build Ahsoka Tano. So, the first thing we're going to do is go over the leader, because Star Wars Unlimited is a leader-based game, and what that basically means is you can't really play without one, because they're what you're going to build your deck around, because they have certain traits, certain effects, and also certain aspects that are going to benefit you in some form. And they're going to be what you're going to essentially associate your leader with and what your aim of the deck is. So with this new set comes a new mechanic, and that is the force mechanic, and there are some leaders in this set that require you to use the force mechanic and some that don't. Now with Ahsoka, she is one that actually makes use of this force mechanic, so that is part of her effect, so you will have to incorporate it, which is one thing with this leader. And if you didn't know, the force mechanic is basically a token you can generate by whenever you fulfill an effect, like you've got on bases as well. So once you fulfill the effect, you gain the force, you have your force token, and then you use that force token, which does not stack, you can only have one at a time, to use an effect. Now for Ahsoka, the way she uses the force is that on her leader side effect, so when she's in the lead area, her effect is an action where you need to tap her or exhaust, exhaust her, and then use the force, so use that force token to spend it, to then give a friendly unit Sentinel for this phase. So that is basically what she does. She is a leader that gives Sentinel to units, so that way you can use them to defend your base. And what Sentinel should do is make it is kind of like a blocker. So while a unit has Sentinel, if your opponent wants to attack your base or another unit in that same arena from that side, they have to go through that Sentinel first. Now if you have multiple Sentinels, your opponent can choose which one they want to attack into, but if you've got one, they have to go through that one before they can go through any to your base or other units, unless they have Saboteur. Now that is the focus of Ahsoka. Now she does come with some cool traits as well, like Force and Fringe. Fringe is one of those traits which is almost like just covers almost anything, like anything not associated with anything, and it's not going to be that much benefit. You can get some benefit. I think there's one card that may be relevant that can make use of this from the last set, but the main trait she's going to have that's going to be beneficial is Force. Now this is like all leaders in this set have the Force, but the Force trait helps you benefit from some kinds of Force from things like that, which are really, really cool and really, really strong. Also with Ahsoka, she deploys not too late but not too early at 6 resources. That means once you have 6 resources available to you, you can then deploy her, which is an epic action, meaning you actually could take once a game to basically flip her from the leader area onto the ground arena to then join the fight. When she does come down, she comes down with stats, being 5 power and 6 health, which is not too bad. It's not the best for a 6 drop, not too bad. She has 6 health, which is pretty solid. It's outside the range of being just straight out taken down with takedown, and 5 power is a good amount of power to hit back with. It's quite strong. And when she does deploy, now she no longer needs to use the Force. Now she just needs to attack and give a friendly unit Sentinel for this phase, and that can be herself or any other unit you control as friendly. So when it says friendly unit, that is your units. So pretty decent, nice ability to give Sentinel to things. It's some kind of shenanigans you can do with the fact you can give things Sentinel, or even give certain units that want don't normally have Sentinel, so you can help them out as well, which is really cool. So that is basically a leader. So she's all about giving Sentinel, but when she's in the lead area, she needs to use the Force. So you will have to, if you want to use it from that when she's in lead area, which is going to be most of the time when she's in play, unless you can keep her out and have her survive a long time, then you're going to need to use the Force to basically make use of her throughout the game. Also, another thing is that leaders have showcases, which are alternative arts that you can get, more shiny, more harder to get rarer arts of the leader, so it gives you an alternative art for your leader. Now the thing with art is it's subjective, so if you like it, fair enough. If you don't like it, also fair enough, because The only thing that matters when it comes to art is your own view, because you'll be the one playing the card. And Ahsoka's got a pretty nice one, but it's not one of the best, but it's pretty decent. So if you're interested in playing Ahsoka, you really like the player, you can even go and try and get a showcase to have a more shiny art if you feel that way about it. So that is the leader. Now let's get into the next part. So this would usually be the part where I put in the basics, so giving all the basics information about like bases, aspects, ratios, and stuff like that. And I used to put this in so if anybody was brand new to the game or newish to the game, they get everything they need in one video. But then that wasn't always appreciated for some of the videos. Some people didn't like it. Some people didn't know how to skip, even though there was in the first few series there wasn't I didn't have chapters. But then recently, well, since set 3, I've had chapters. Some people didn't know how to skip and stuff. But I did want to keep it there because newer players will need that information. So appear on screen at some point here, maybe there should be a little card or a little link to take you to my understanding how to build, how understanding the basics video, which goes over all the basics you could need for the game as of set 5. And I'm gonna try and do that every set. So if there's anything brand new, like in this set, got a major thing, being a new mechanic, so I want to make sure that's covered. To make sure if you're a brand new or newer player, you get all the basic information you need about the game before you go in specifically to a certain leader. So if you are a brand new or newer player, then I recommend to check out that video. It's a shame that you have to go to a second video and then come back to this, but you can go to that one, watch that one first, then come back here and carry on and understand how to build Ahsoka. But that'll help you out for any newer players. If you're more of a veteran or don't need that information, let's skip on to the information you're looking for. So with Ahsoka, you get 4 options. Now I've covered this in everyone, but usually since the beginning of the game, from the beginning of the game, every leader had 4 different aspect options. You had the 2 aspects on your leader, and then the 1 from your base. So I'll give you 3 aspects and 4 different combinations, because you can have 4 different aspect bases. And because you always have the same tool in your leader, which for Ahsoka is Heroism and Vigilance, or white and blue. And then for the base, you had 1 of the 4 different options, which meant you can go double. With Ahsoka, you can go double blue, blue green, blue red, or blue yellow. Now these will give certain benefits and certain kind of access to cards, and that's what we're going to go over in the video. Now, from set 4, so from the last set, we then got a base with no aspects, meaning you can then potentially have leaders having only 2 aspects available to them. And with this set having leaders with 1 aspect, you can potentially have 1 aspect decks, which is like extremely hard mode. If you wanted to go for that, it's a crazy way to play, but it's a very hard mode you can go if you want to challenge that. We're not going to get into this video. We'll get into that when we come to it with those leaders. But for now, we're going to go and have a look at the 4 different aspect options for Ahsoka and see what the benefits are. So let's have a look. So let's start off with Vigilance, because this is the aspect that Ahsoka provides you inherently on her own. And we'll start off with the bases. Now, Ahsoka is a leader that requires to use the Force, so it's probably best to go for a Force base so you can kind of make full use of her. And the options you have are the common bases, which need you to attack with a friendly Force unit to gain the Force and are 28 health. Or the rare base, and they have 25 health, each of the Force rare bases, and they have a different way to gain the Force. Now for the blue one, it's at the end of the turn, so regroup phase. If you control a unit with 4 or more remaining HP, the Force is with you. So you can only gain the Force once a turn at the end of the turn, whereas the common bases allow you to gain potentially more uses of the token, as long as you can attack with a Force unit. Now if you feel like you don't really care about that using Ahsoka's effect, you can go for Colossus, Pal City, or Dagobah Swamp as some good options. So Colossus gives you the maximum health, but you have 1 less card in your hand, so you open with 5 instead of 6. Pal City provides Ahsoka with extra 1 health when she's deployed, but it gives you 26 health, so she comes out as a 5 power, 7 health leader instead, which could be useful. And then you got the 30 health bases, which are just standard, like basically backup if you don't feel like if you feel like any of the effect bases aren't worth it. So those are your base options. So great, some nice options, but you might want to go for the Force base, but this is an option if you don't want to go for the Force bases instead. Now I'm going to cover every time we go over a blue leader or a leader that also blue as a base option for any leader, to make sure we're covering Anakin, because it's one of the most powerful legendaries in the new set. It has 2 win plates, and they are both the same in that if you got a certain card in your discard, you give a unit -3 power and 3 health. So if you get them both off at the same time, -6/6 without having to do anything like lose a unit and things like that, like the set 1 legendary loop does, is powerful. So some decks are incorporating the other side of the game, so that way they can incorporate both effects. Because usually you can have either heroism or villainy covered on your leader. So having the other one as a way to get in your discard is a way to get the full effect of this. So we're always going to cover to see how we can get the full uses of Anakin easy enough. And for the villainy, for the heroism side, you've got some alright ones. Like for Ahsoka doesn't have as easy a way to just ditch cards and discard, unless you're using red, where you can use discard effects. You don't really have that in blue. So if you wanted to go for a way to get a villainy card in the discard for blue, you could go for Drain Essence or Power Dark Side. These are pretty nice ones. Now they will both incur the Acid Cunning, so they cost 2 more, but Drain Essence will provide you the Force, as well as doing 2 damage to a unit, so it costs 4, but then 2 damage to something, maybe finishing something off, and then giving you the Force for Ahsoka. Whereas Power Dark Side will cost 5, but it forces you to defeat a unit they control, even a leader, and basically getting removal, plus you're getting that dark card in the discard, and then the turn after, then you'll be on 6 for Anakin if you play it on curve. So these are some pretty good options if you want to try and get the full effects of Anakin if you're just going for blue. So when it comes to Vigilance, there are some really nice cards. There's a lot of good removal as well, some good healing removal and things like that, like shielding up units as well. But the better cards are in Heroism or Villainy. So looking at this, we've got some pretty nice cards here. Like I've got the top row being the some good units you can use for, so especially if you want to get into Force, some good solid ones you have, and in the bottom being some good utility cards and removal. So we've got Owen Lars, not a Force unit, but it's got a way to find your Force units with his when defeated. Pretty nice. It also can restore 2 to heal. You got two good turn 1 plays, being Night Sister Warrior or Secretive Sage, both being good 2-cost Force units to gain you the Force. Secretive Sage comes in shielded, while Night Sister Warrior comes in and when defeated draws your cards, it replaces itself. Then you got later turns, you got Chirrut being a very nice shielded unit, Sentinel unit that you can use the Force more times. So if you want to use the Force more than just on your leader, you can use it for this, and you can use the Force by reducing the damage you would take when attacked into. And with Sentinel, he's going to be attacked into, making him a very, very strong card. Then you got Ki-Adi-Mundi and Anakin being some good top end ones. Ki-Adi-Mundi giving you ability to draw more cards while you have 2 more units with him on board with his effect. Every time your opponent plays a second card for the phase, and Anakin, as you've seen, very powerful card, especially if you can get both effects off. But even if you can only get 1, then it's still solid. Then for utility cards, we've got Entrench and It Bundle Things being a nice one. Entrench being a very useful upgrade for both defensively and offensively. Because you can power up your own units, and even though they can't attack bases, you can use that extra boost in power and stats to take down your opponent's units in that same arena. Or you can put on your opponent's units, and as long as you control nothing in that arena, that unit cannot attack, because it can't attack bases. If you've got nothing to attack into, it's not going to attack at all. Then It Binds All Things is a nice way to kind of make use of the Force trait. It is a good card, but it's not as powerful as some other cards. But it allows you to heal 3 damage from a unit, and if you control a Force unit, do that much damage to another unit. So heal your own units and damage your opponents is pretty solid. Then you've got a lot of removal, so you've got things like Shatterpoint, Takedown, Fellow Dragon, and Rival's Fall being very good options. Probably the strongest ones, well, some of the main ones in blue, because you get different options from them. They will provide different things, like Rival's Fall defeats any unit, no matter what it is, even a leader, and it costs a 6. Whereas if they get a bit cheaper, that's when it becomes a little bit more restrictive. So you got things like Shatterpoint, which can either defeat a unit, a non-leader unit that's 3 less health, or use the Force to defeat any non-leader unit. So a good way to use Force there as well. And you got Takedown and Fellow Dragon also offering some removal, with Takedown taking out anything as long as it's got 5 or less remaining HP, or Fellow Dragon, which takes on any non-leader unit that's got 5 or more power. So different kind of options there. And then for Heroism, you've got some pretty solid units. So you've got some very good units, very good cards, and these are just a selection of them. So for the top one, we've got the Force units that can help you gain the Force going up on curve. You've got Yaddle being a very good turn 1 play, providing you with healing with Restore, and also when it attacks gives all your other Jedi units healing as well, and all the ones at the top here are all Jedi too. We got Yoda as well, also offers Restore 2. Remember, Restore does stack, so if you Yaddle and use Yaddle to give Yoda extra Restore 1, it now becomes Restore 3. And when Yoda is defeated, you can choose a player, and that player draws a card. So you can choose yourself and not your opponent to draw a card, which is cool, or you can choose your opponent if you want them to draw for some reason. Then we got Ezra, good, like the best stat you can get for free cost, 3-5. Now on attack, can give an experience token to a creature or spectre. Not hugely amazing because there's not too many of those kind of units with that trait you're going to use, but if it comes up, that's going to be great. But it's more for its stats, and cost is really amazing. You got Cunning jumping up in cost and power, so extra 1 power and extra 1 cost, but same health. And also has on attack to help you kind of mill your opponent's deck out by making a discard card for every spectre you control. Then heal damage from your base for every aspect among those cards discarded. Pretty nice there. Then you got Obi-Wan and Luke being the more top end. Obi-Wan being a very nice sentinel that when defeated gives 2 experience to a never friendly unit. And if there's a force unit, you do give it 2, draw a card. And Luke being a very powerful and a kind of staple for heroic blue decks, because it's just 7-drop, 7/6, restores free, so that can stack. And when played, minus a unit's stats by 3/3. But if you lost something this phase, like a unit, then you give it minus 6/6 instead. Empress and space options, because you can't ignore space. You've got Red Squadron X-Wing, Obi-Wan's Avis Spartan Redemption being very solid units. Red Squadron draws you more cards. Obi-Wan's Avis Spartan does more damage, a little bit to itself and also your opponent's units, or space units. And Redemption gets you to manage to heal up your units by units and base by 8, and then put on itself, also as well being a sentinel as well. You also got some good non-unit cards like Jedi Lightsaber being a very solid lightsaber for Heroism Blue, and also some good events in Mystic Reflection Forces with me, getting more of a benefit if you've got the Force, and all these non-unit cards get a benefit when it's not a Force. So Jedi Lightsaber makes it so if there's a Force unit attached to, when it attacks a unit, it minus that unit's stats it's attacking into by 2/2. Mystic Reflection also minuses a unit's an enemy unit's power by 2, but if you've got a Force unit, minuses it by 2 health as well. Whereas Force is with me, as you attack with a unit, giving it 2 experience, but if it's a Force unit, it also gains a shield as well. So very powerful cards and some very solid options just in Ahsoka herself, especially from the Heroism side. Then there are cards that are just Heroism because it's a very unique aspect, along with Villainy, where it not only comes attached to every other aspect, like the colored aspects, but it also comes in as cards on its own. And you got some pretty nice ones here. You got Grogu, Luke Skywalker being some Force units to help you gain the Force. Grogu being able to heal up to 2 damage from one of your unit, from a unit, by tapping himself, and then deal that much damage to a different unit, so heal your own and damage your opponents. Having solid stats for its cost. And you got Luke Skywalker, which every time you play a unique unit, if you can use the Force, which you're hopefully going to be using with Ahsoka, you can then give himself experience and a shield token, just keep buffing up and protecting him, which is cool. You got Sabine's Masterpiece being a never good space unit, where depending on whatever aspects you got, so whatever colored aspects you have, you get an extra effect. So healing with blue, experience with green, damage with red, and resource exhausting or untapping with yellow. So pretty good options. And Tranquility is a nice one that you might want to have inside deck if you play a lot of Republic units, which are quite a few, especially with Jedi and stuff like that. You can get, when played, you can get a Republic unit from your discard pile back. So get some, like, you can get recycled then the Anakin, because that's a Republic unit. And then on attack, when it attacks, the next 3 Republic cards you do try to play for this phase cost 1 less. So some pretty solid stats, and you can even grab another copy of itself because it is a Republic unit. So against like high control decks, you can keep recycling it. Make sure you always have a unit. So that is all the stuff that Ahsoka has to offer. Now let's have a look at the double blue and see if that's a good option for Ahsoka. So for double blue, these are the 12 cards you have access to, because when you do go for a double aspect deck, essentially what you're doing is sacrificing whole other aspects. In this case, you're sacrificing all the aggression cards, all the command cards, all the cunning cards that have access to these 12 double blue cards. Now, it's making it so you've got less of a card pool, but some of these cards are very, very strong. And it was not as great an option, or not as accessible an option early in the game, but now we've got more sets, more cards. It's an option for every leader to have a try at if they want to. Now, that's pretty nice cards. Like, you got a lot of them that already has Sentinel, which is not that synergetic with Ahsoka, considering she gives Sentinel, but some of them have Power Flex to help you out. And out of these are the ones I feel are useful and not useful for Ahsoka. So as you can see, we have knocked out 6 of them, but still have 6 of them as good options. Now, I did mention that Sentinel is not a great thing, not the most useful thing for Ahsoka is that she can give anything Sentinel, as long as you can use the Force. So when she's deployed, just has to attack to give Sentinel to something. But Bendu is a very nice card in that whenever it attacks, the next non-heroic or villainy unit you play costs 2 less, which means you can cheapen the cost of anything that's not a heroic or villainy card, which is, as you've seen, there's a lot of good cards that you can use for this, and making that card cheaper so you can play more things on that turn. Now, Protector, not really useful. You can use Ahsoka to give something Sentinel, so be able to basically equipping this, having this upgrade just to give something Sentinel when you can use Ahsoka to do that. Sure, it does it permanently, but Ahsoka can do it for free without needing to play a card or put this in your deck. Vigilance is amazing. 4 options and all are very strong, giving you things like milling, healing, removal, and shielding is fantastic for blue. Sugi is, once again, never Sentinel. You don't really need that. Even though you can smuggle it in, it's not useful. Second chance is nice when you can put on units to keep it, so if they die you can bring them around. It's a good option. It's not the best, but it's an option. Midnight repairs, you can heal up, but then most of the time your units are going to be taken down. It's not going to, often you're going to get to like units have survive and then heal, and also it does heal from, I think it's just 1 unit. I'm not sure if it's for all of them, but if it's for all of them it's useful, but yeah, it's not a good option. Finn and Duchess Champion are just not good cards. We don't even consider them. They're not great for what they do. Like their stats, cost, and effects are not really worth it. Equalize is very nice because you can then, if you've got less units to your opponent, you can minus more. You can minus 2 of them instead of just 1, and it helps against space focus decks. Then you have Hondo and Dune being more 4-cost cards, but these are pretty handy because Doom powers up everything that's not a vehicle at the end of your turn every time. 2/7 is pretty solid for 4, but just giving everything else that you control experience as long as it's not a vehicle. At the end of every turn, it just makes them stronger, 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 which is really cool. Then Hondo comes in shielded and can then start stealing your opponent's upgrades that aren't pilots every time it attacks, which is pretty solid. So at least half of the cards being good, and that basically means that double Vigilance is a good option for Ahsoka. So it means that's worthwhile to go into and a solid option if you want to go for that. So now we've covered double blue, let's have a look and see about command. So if you didn't know, command is the ramp aspect, which means it can increase its resources quicker than any other aspect. And it can do this by a few different things. We'll check that out, but first we're going to start with the bases. So the bases you have, especially for the Force, you have Jedi Temple and also the other one, which is like a, I can't remember what the name of it is now, but there's Never Common base, which is basically exactly the same. Attack with a friendly Force unit, gain the Force. But the rare base for the rare Force base you have access to, remember they're all 25 health, is Mystic Monastery, which allows you to, as an action, just gain the Force. But the downside to that is you can only use 3 times because otherwise that's just too great to just be able to actually use the Force. So the restriction is you can use it 3 times a game. So if you feel like you're not going to need to use Ahsoka's effect or the Force that often in the game, you can go for this. But if you feel like you might use it a bit more than 3 times, maybe a common base is better. And then the thing with green as well is while the leaders are a little bit lackluster, you don't see many command leaders do well or see play much in the game. Their bases do see a lot of play because they got some of the best bases in the game for green. Like example, you've got Energy Conversion Lab, or ECL for short. You got Data Vault as well as being the 2 best bases in the game at some point, where ECL was the best base for the first 2 sets, while Data Vault was probably the best base for the last set after the suspensions. Because ECL, it basically allows you to, as an epic action, so same thing as deploying once a game, you can play a unit at cost 6 less. It's not paying its cost. You give Ambush, which is very powerful, and even now it's seeing a bit of more of a resurgence thanks to the new Vader leader. The Vader Legendary, because that has a very strong effect and it gets is a card that gets better and is busted with Ambush and okay if it doesn't. Whereas Data Vault gives you a maximum health you can get for green being 33 health, but you need to include 10 more cards minimum in your deck, being your minimum deck size goes from 50 to 60 just using this base. So some pretty solid bases, and you just need to consider what you want to go for. If you want to use more, if you want to just use the Force, if you want to use more of the Force or less of the Force, or if you want to use one of the strongest green bases around. Once again, we're going to talk about Anakin because once again, there's different ways to play it, and if you're a blue leader, we're going to go in all different aspects to see how you can use it in each one. And then every time we cover blue for a leader, we're going to cover this as well. But for green, you do have reinforcement as a way you can do it, because what this allows you to do is look at the top 10 cards of your deck, play up to 3 units with a combined cost of 7 or less, and play them for free. So you can either play a 1 big 7 drop or multiple, or up to 3 little guys as long as their combined cost is 7 or less. Now, because it plays it for free, it doesn't include the asset penalty, so you can play things like Molt and Cad Bane off of it for free, which is amazing, and that gets your ability card on the board, and if that card dies, it's in your discard to get then trigger Anakin. So you got some good, solid options there. Now for ramp cards, these are the 4 options you have for green. You have Resupply Carrier as your only unit that you can do, but later on in the game, I can then ramp up a card. You got Pricing Head, which you can play on a unit turn 1 and turn 2 to hopefully defeat it, so that way you can then get ramp up. You got Spark of Hope, which is also 2 costs, but it requires you first to have a lost unit in that phase because its effect is to choose a unit in your discard pile. If it was defeated this phase, put it in play as a resource. So as long as the unit was defeated in that phase, you can then ramp it into resources at the cost of 2, but it just requires more steps than things like Resupply being probably the better option here, which is just a free cost event, put it to play as a resource. So you essentially play it and then put it in play as a resource. Easiest one to use, doesn't require anything extra to do, like putting on a unit, the unit's doing something, or waiting until later in the game to play. It's just turn 2, you can ramp. Very solid there. Now, Forward Just Command is another one like Vigilance where the units in Heroism and Villainy are better than the normal just command unit. We've got some solid ones here. We've got some units at the top, being Hu Yang, Maz Kanata, Dagon Master, Tarantarak, and Reinforcement Walker being some solid ones. Hu Yang is a nice one where you can, one played, choose another unit, give it 2/2 while a card stays on the board. So while unit survives, stays on the board, that unit gains extra 2 health and 2 power. And if you can give a sentinel to that unit, you can keep Hu Yang safe from other attacks, so that unit stays buffed and just stays strong on the board. You've got Maz Kanata, which is nice because it makes use of the Force by, when played, allowing you to attack with a Force unit, but allow it to attack for 2 more power than usual. Then you got Dagon Master, which is a 5+5/5, which has more ways to use the Force by when played or when defeated. You can use the Force to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, find a Force unit and draw it, and then put the rest of the bottom in a random order. So it helps you find more Force units so you can then keep gaining the Force. You've got Tarantarak, which goes against Force decks by if your opponent controls a Force unit, you can play it with Ambush, and it's a 5+5/5, it's pretty nice. And you've got Reinforcement Walker being more top end, which when it comes down or when it attacks, you look at the top card of your deck. You can either draw it and add it to your hand, or you can discard it, and then because you discard it, he'll 3 damage from your base. So it's got a bit of healing or draw power, depending on what you want. And then for your non-units, you've got things like General's Blade, which while Ahsoka isn't a Jedi, things like Hu Yang are, and there are some Jedis in the green as well, so you can put that on a unit, and when it attacks, as long as it's got a Jedi trait, makes the next card you play, well, the next unit you play cost 2 less. Then for events, you've got some pretty powerful ones like Timely Intervention, Immune Strike, Resupply, and 2 sides. Time Intervention is another way to give things ambush. I don't normally have it by being a 1-cost event, or at 2 costs if you smuggle it, which is cool, which means play it from your resource. You got Immune Strike, allowing you to attack with a Force unit, even if it's exhausted, it gets extra 1 power for that attack, but can't attack bases. You got Resupply, Ramp card, and then you got Choose Side, being a nice card normally in the sideboard, which allows you to choose a friendly unit, then choose an opponent's unit, and switch control. That means you can choose your opponent's big, powerful unit, choose your one little tiny unit that you don't care about, switch control so they get the tiny unit and you get their big, powerful unit. Pretty nice card. And then for the Heroism side, you've got a lot of good cards. Like you've got all these different units, you've got these different ground units, you've got some space units, and you've got some good events as well. Well, and non-units. You've got things like Gungi for your turn 1 play, just give you a very solid unit that's hard to take down by the normal like Target Town kind of decks. You've got Obi-Wan, unit can be a Sentinel constantly on its own, but then it also comes down with the best stats you can get for a free cost, being 3/5. You've got Eefgoth, which is more ramp, but it needs you to use the Force and be defeated, so I didn't put that in because it's more of a Force focus, where like Spark of Hope is just general gain the ramp. Whereas Eefgoth, as long as you can use the Force when defeated, you can use it to ramp himself up. He's a 4-cost 5/4, which is solid. Then I've got General Riken, which isn't a Force unit, but he is a pretty interesting one because where Ahsoka can give any unit Sentinel, General Riken also can do the same, because when it's played or when it attacks, it can choose a unit, and if it's got Sentinel, you can give an experience token to it, but if it doesn't have Sentinel, it gains Sentinel. So you can also use this as another way to gain Sentinel on a card, or if that card already has Sentinel, give it a buff. So with Ahsoka, you can give something Sentinel and use Riken to start buffing it up, and use that little combo to just keep buffing up as a unit, which is pretty cool. It comes out the same turn Ahsoka deploys. You can even give Ahsoka Sentinel and then play him to then, or attack with him, to then go ahead and buffer up while she has Sentinel. Then you've got your top end in Killer and Beck and Yoda being very powerful units. Killer and being a very good unit, a 7/7 that can, like home 1, look at the top, basically play out something free cost with a free cost reduction out, but this time from your deck. So the difference between Killer and Beck and home 1 is they both, when played, play a unit from somewhere, so Killer and units from the top 7 cards of your deck, and play it with a free cost reduction, whereas home 1 does the same thing but from the discard pile with a free cost reduction, but unlike it, home 1 can only play a heroic unit out, whereas Killer and Beck can play anything out. And they've got the same stats in 7/7, but they cost differently, where Killer and Beck cost 7, home 1 costs 8. So they're very powerful cards. Getting more, basically up to 2 units on a board for such little, a certain cost is pretty cool. And Yoda's a good 8 cost as well. A good way to use Force, because when played you can use the Force to heal your base. And whenever you use the Force, which Ahsoka can do every turn, you can then do damage to a unit equal to twice the number of the units you control. So if you've got 2 units, you do 4 damage to something, which is very, very cool. And it's every time you use the Force, no matter what. Then for space units, you've got Blue Leader, Bright Hope, and Home 1. We already covered Home 1, but then Blue Leader is a nice ambush one that can even switch areas, so go for space to ground, as long as you can pay 2 more resources and also gain 2 experience. Then you got Bright Hope being a nice little sentinel, can even bounce back ground arena units, put them safe back in your hand so you can play them back out again without damage, and even draw a card if you do so. Then for events and upgrades, you've got Yoda Lightsaber being a very nice upgrade, using the Force to heal free damage from a base, while also buffing up a unit with its stats being free 1. And your reinforcement we've already covered, same with Spark of Hope. So, you gotta think about, is command a good aspect for Ahsoka? I would say yes, because it's got some very nice cards. You can ramp up to get Ahsoka out quickly. You've got some good synergy, some good nice, like you got healing, both a little bit in green plus a lot in blue, and you got some nice ramping, really cool units that can make good use of Ahsoka. Let's say Ahsoka is a very solid card, leader to go into command, and that's a never good option for her. So let's check out the next one, being aggression. So next we have aggression, and this is a very damaging focus aspect and a very aggressive one, but makes a good amount of use of the Force as well. It's outside of just attacking with a Force unit, you can use some Force cards. Now all the Force bases need you to attack, because you've got the common bases need you to attack with a Force unit to gain the Force, whereas the rare one, Table of Destruction, this needs you to have a friendly unit deal 3 more combat damage to your enemy base to gain the Force. So you have to actually attack and do damage at least 3 or more. Easily done, and means you basically, no matter what Force base you go for, you have to attack to gain the Force. Now, if you don't want to go for the Force, you do have some other kind of bases. You have Target Town being a damage one. Set 1/1, epic action. You get to deal 3 damage to a damaged non-leader unit, so you finish something off that you were just shy of taking out. Or you can have Thermal Slayer, meaning just like opposite Data Vault, where you can decrease the deck size instead of increasing it, but then you have less health, so you have 3 less health, which means you have 5 less cards required for your minimum deck, being 45 instead of 50, or you just have 30 health bases. Up to you. You probably might want to go for the Force bases for Ahsoka, but you've got some good options in like Target Town and Thermal Slayer as well. Now for Anakin, you've got a little bit of an easier way to kind of set it up, where you can either use Force Lightning, which is a 1 cost event, which is villainy. Now it will cost 3 because of the Aspidoni, but it's got a good effect to shut off an opponent's abilities and also pay more resources, 1 extra, in increments of 1, to do an extra 2 damage to the chosen unit for every resource paid. So a cheap way to kind of enable a dark card in the discard pile, or also get some good benefits. Or you've got Force Throw, where you can choose a player, even yourself, and that player discards a card from your hand, and if you control a Force unit, you get to deal damage to the cost of the discarded card. So you can use it to discard a dark card out of your hand and do damage equal to its cost, or force your opponent to discard a card, but there's another way to kind of ditch a card in the discard. So you've got 2 good options there, and both being Force cards. Now for the normal side of aggression, you've got some pretty nice stuff. Nothing too amazing, but some good ones. You've got some good units, like you've got Jedi in Hiding, Merrin, Quillen Voss, and Asajj for some good Force units, some good beneficial ones. Dead in Hiding having hidden, and also when defeated you can use the Force to make your opponent discard a card from the hand, so a bit of hand control. And you've got Merrin as a way to discard cards from your hand, so another way to kind of trigger for Anakin, I should have put in there, to then deal damage to your unit and also set up Anakin. Pretty nice there, good stats for its cost as well. You got Quinlan, where it's a standard of his good stats for its cost, like Kanan, 4/5 for 4. But when it attacks, if you have 6 or more power, you deal 2 damage to your opponent's base, and assigns the way to initiate that. I mean, a 5 cost, 5/6 that when played when it attacks, give a friendly force unit extra 2 power for that phase. So pretty strong combination there, and even the art sticks together. Then for non-force units, you've got Cham and Crate Dragon. Crate Dragon being a very nice one, especially with Force Throw, to be able to make sure you do 9 damage to a unit if you fulfill the full effect of Force Throw. And also being a very good late-end card as well, where for every time your opponent plays a card, what's on board, you do damage to the base or ground units, or a ground unit equal to the cost of that card. Very, very strong, good late-game card. You got Champ Subdualer, which is the only ramp card outside of green, where if your opponent has more resources than you, when it's played, you get ramp from the top of your deck. So that's pretty cool, pretty nice card, and very good stats for its cost too. Now Revenge was pretty nice one, like we've already seen. Force Throw being one of the strongest cards in the game now, so with more force units. Basically, it was alright up until this set because it had limited force units, but now we've got a lot more. It gets a lot more powerful, being more abilities, more ways to fulfill the full effect. Then you got some damaging events like Daring Raid, Shoot Down, Open Fire, and Bombing Run, being nice damaging ones, being some that just do straight up damage to a unit, saying like Daring Raid or Open Fire, where Daring Raid can also damage a base. Shoot Down is nice, where it can deal damage to space units, and if it does take it out, in this way you do 2 damage to a base. Or Bombing Run, which is a nice one to help combat that new, not new because it's been out since last set, the Invader Space aggro deck, where you choose an arena, deal 3 damage to all units in that arena, so it's very handy against those Vader decks. Then for Heroism, you got a lot more options, and not so much in events and upgrades, but you got a load of good units. You got the top row being the more mostly focused on force to generate the force, but also some ever strong ones. So you got Adi Galea being a nice turn 1 unit for for a force unit. Also have an effect where if your opponent plays a unit, you damage their base by 1. Or you got Sabine for a non-force 1, being a very strong one, which can even be untouchable if you've got 3 or more different aspects of other units on board. You got Kato-So, Kiadi for good 4 costs. Kato-So be a nice one where when defeated, both being solid stats as 4 cost 4 4s. Kato-So have an overwhelm, and also when defeated, making your opponent choosing an opponent, they either discard a card from the hand or take 3 damage to their base, so very aggressive or hand controlling one. Whereas Kiadi makes use of the force by using it when played to control 2 cards. Very good up your hand, and also a very strong card and a very sought after uncommon from the new set. Then you got two different mace windows. You got the 6 cost and 7 drop. So the 6 drop is a 6 cost 6/6 that can use the force to then deal 4 damage to any unit. Where the 7 drop is a 5/7, so stats split a little bit differently, but has ambush, and when it defeats a unit, it can restand to be able to attack again. So very strong force units there. Then for some space units, we've got Green Squadron, Red 5, and Rebellious Hammerhead for some very nice ones. Green Squadron being a nice turn 1 play. It's a 1/3, but has raid 2, so when it swings for 3 instead of just 1. Red 5 is a nice one, a 3 cost 3/4, but it's got a nice effect that goes well with aggression, being when it attacks, you can deal 2 damage to something that's already damaged. So if you can damage something, this can even damage it more. And you got Rebellious Hammerhead at 6 cost 5/7, which when played, you can deal damage to a unit equal to the number of cards in your hand. So if you control quite a few cards or gain a lot of cards in hand, using things like Kiadi, then Rebellious Hammerhead can deal a lot of damage. Then you got some other really strong cards that aren't force or space, and that's Cassian, Poe, and Wrecker. Very solid ones. Cassian being a nice smuggle card, so you resource it and smuggle it out later. When you do smuggle it, it comes in ready, so it can attack straight away. And it's a 3 cost 3/5, but it's a 5 cost if you smuggle. Poe is a nice one, a 5 cost 6/6, a very strong one, so it seems that's a mace window because that turn earlier. And has nice options depending on how many cards you discard from your hand. And Wreck is a nice one, a 6 cost 7/6, so very aggressive with overwhelm as well. And you can defeat one of your resources if you want to, then deal 5 damage to a ground unit, which is pretty cool. So some very strong, powerful cards in aggression. And then you got to think about, is aggression going to be a good one? And that is straight away, easily, yes, probably one of the better ways to play a blue heroism leader with red, because you got some good access, especially to the force as well. You get access to things like force throw, and some just powerful units and very strong statted and effects as well. So far, all the aspects we've seen are good. Now we're going to move on to the last one, being Cunning. So for Cunning, this is a jack of all trades aspect, gives you the option of doing almost anything, and this is the one where the bases kind of lack. The leaders, like, Cunning is a very strong aspect. The leaders are very powerful, but when it comes to the bases, they kind of do lack a little bit. Now for the force ones, like I said, you got the common ones where you need to attack with a force unit, but the rare one requires you to, as an action, exhaust one of your own units to gain the force. So you just exhaust one of your units, so basically you've rested, can't attack or anything like that, to gain the force. And you can do this multiple times without needing to attack or anything, but it means you don't really do anything with those units at all. So it's an option, maybe not the best, but it is an option. Then for other bases that aren't the force, you've got Petrimac Arena, giving Ahsoka an extra power, making her basically a 6-cost 6/6 when she deploys, giving her extra 1 power when she's out and about. Or you got the Bat Village, which then takes away your mulligan, but lets you open with 9 cards instead of 6. But you don't get to keep them, because at the start of your first turn, you need to put 3 at the bottom of your deck in order you choose. So it doesn't let you keep a lot. It takes away your mulligan, but it gives you a more consistent opening by opening 9 cards in one go, so you can make sure your openings are a lot more consistent. And then you've got the normal 3 health bases if you don't feel like you like any of those bases. So that's the base options. Now for Anakin, you've got quite a few different ways to discard a card for Anakin to get the full effect in, and they're quite cheap ones as well. For the Heroism side, you've got R2 and Bamboozle. Bamboozle is a card you can play for free using this effect, where you can, if you discard another Cunning card from your hand, you can play it for free. So you can play it without paying its event cost, so you can avoid paying its cost by discarding another Cunning card from your hand instead. So you can discard a villainy Cunning card from your hand to then pay for this to play it for free, and then now you've got a Heroism card and villainy card in discard pile just from one card, and it potentially exhausts the unit as its effect and returns each upgrade on it to its owner's hand. So easy way to do it in one. You got R2D2, it's a nice turn 1 play as well, where you can, when played, you can discard a card from your hand, and if you do, look at the top 3 cards of your deck and grab one, add it to your hand and draw it. So R2D2 is a great one where you can just, if you got a villainy card in your hand with it, you can play it, discard a villainy card and get something from the top 3 cards of your deck. Every 2 goes to the bottom of your deck, and now you set that up, and if R2 dies, that's the Heroism one. Then you got Favorable Delegate as a nice one, where usually when it's out and about, you don't want to kill it because it's got 1 play to draw a card. When it's defeated, you discard a card from your hand. So you can play it, instantly gain a card like a nice little cantrip, but then when it's discarded, when it's defeated, you can then use the discard a villainy card at your hand to set up Anakin. So very nice ways. Probably the strongest ways to set up Anakin is in Cunning, and with multiple effects you can play as early as turn 1, or even for free. Now for units in the normal Cunning side, there's not too many great ones for like gaining the force or in terms of like most units. You have these ones, so you have like Greedo, Formidable Delegate, Mysterious Hermit, Dooku, and Genesis Patrolfire. Hermit and Dooku being the only really non-heroism or villainy force units that we've got. We've only got the set. So if you want to gain the force, at least Mysterious Hermit as well, gains the force straight away by using ambush, but not the best stats. Well, it's not the best power anyway. And then Dooku being a nice one hidden and re-triggered hidden. Then you got Greedo's very cheap 1-cost unit, very powerful, very fragile, but then hits quite hard for cheap. We've already seen Formidable Delegate, and you got Genius Patrol Fighter, which can bounce back 3 cost or less units when it's played, and can even play out cheaper by using Exploit as well, which is defeating your own units to play out cheaper, 2 less for every unit defeated. Then for events, you got some pretty nice ones. You got Machine's Fury, which is very nice if you go for a force focused build, because it allows you to play a force from your hand, give it ambush, attack straight away, and the next damage it would take, most likely from ambush, is 2 less. You do take 2 less damage. Very nice card, basically like Timely Adventure for yellow, but only on force units, which is very good if you go for a force focus deck. Then you got some nice other events. You got Electromagnetic Pulse, nice one to go against those vehicle focused space decks, where you deal 2 damage to a vehicle or droid and then exhaust it. So when Vader goes ahead and deploys, ping it with this, so it's tap down, can't attack, and they don't get attack with it for a lot because it gives a huge boost. And then you got other events like Surprise Strike, Waylay, and now there are 2 of them, very nice ones. Surprise Strike, swing for more power on an attack. Waylay, temporary removal by bouncing any non-leader unit back to its owner's hand for cost of 3. Or now there are 2 of them, where if you have 1 unit on board, you can play something with the same trait as it for 5 less from your hand. 5 less from your hand. A nice way to kind of spam out those bigger units 2 turns ahead, which is really cool. Now for the Heroism side, that's where it gets a little bit better, because there's a lot of good units in the Heroism side, and you got a lot of new Force ones as well. That you've got some old ones and new ones. You've got Going up in the cost, you've got Youngling Padawan as a turn 1 unit, which can do the Force straight away because one player gives you the Force. So then makes it so you've got the Force available from turn 1. Minstrel is one that makes use of the Force. By one player, you can use the Force to ready her, so she can then attack. So if you've got one of those basic attacks, you play her, use the Force ready, swing, gain the Force again, and then you can give Sentinel with Ahsoka. Pretty good stats for it costs as well. Then you've got Ahsoka herself as a 4-cost 3/5, which when played, force your opponent to discard a card, so a very nice one as well, and very nice one, discard a card from your opponent's hand. Nice like over hand control. And then if it's not a unit, if it's a unit they discard, you get the exhausted unit on board. So a very nice one to make them not only discard a card from hand, but potentially tap down one of their units. Then you got Plo Koon as your 5-cost, which ambushes, so you can come down and gain force straight away with his attack bases. And then if you've got 2 other units alongside him on the board, he gains raid 3, meaning you can gain extra 3 power when attacking. Then you got Depa Billava, also have ambush, but 6-cost 5/7, and also Saboteur, so you can ignore shields or sentinels. And you got Qui-Gon Jinn, 7 costs, 7/5, also has ambush. You got ambush on some of the bigger units, and when defeated, you can choose one of your opponent's non-leader ground units and make them either put on top or bottom of the deck. So very, very nice units. Space, you've got Fireball and Millennium Falcon being pretty nice ones. Fireball ambushes for a 2-cost 3/3 unit, but at the end of the turn it takes 1 damage every turn. And then Millennium Falcon can come in ready, same stats as Vanessa Rowe, but at the end of your turn you need to tap a resource. Well, at the end of your turn you need to tap a resource or bounce it back to your hand. So you have tap on one of your resources, so you have 1 less for the next turn, or bounce it back to your hand so you can play it out again. And you also have some pretty nice events as well, like you have Jam Communications and Sparkle Benny, which is like hand hate, whereas Jam Communications is 1 cost, but allows you they both let you look at your opponent's hand. The Jam Communications costs 1 and can only discard an event from your opponent's hand, whereas Sparkle Benny costs 2, but discard any card from your opponent's hand. So nice little hand control bits there. Then you got Cleared the Field, which is a pretty nice one where you can choose a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less, return it and every ever same enemy non-leader unit with the same name as its your opponent's hand. So your opponent spams with like token units, being token space or ground units, you can bounce all those back to the hand and get rid of them. And we got Bamboos, we know what that does from the Anakin deck. So for Cunning, that is another one that is actually really good to play because you got some good options, especially in Force as well, to make use of it if you go for heroic side, and very nice options in a more controlling or grinding way. So far, every single aspect combination is possible and a good option for Ahsoka. So if you want to build Ahsoka in any different way, it's always a good option. And then that brings us to the last bit of the video, being my preferred aspects, because this is something that I put in for the new ones, because in the beginning people used to ask what my preferred aspects were to play, because sometimes people were unsure how they would play. Even after going through all the information, they're still unsure, because there's a lot of good options, especially with Ahsoka where every option is good. What kind of option to play, they still need a little bit more help to go for. So as soon as I kept getting asked about it, I thought I might as well put it in, because it's a nice thing to also get that extra bit of help if needed to kind of see a little bit more. And for my preferred aspects, because I always have a way I like to play any given leader, and for Ahsoka, if I were to play her, which I might do, I will play her in aggression. Aggression, because you get all the good blue healing stuff and removal in blue, and you get some really strong cards in aggression. Like you get Ki-Adi-Mundi to draw more cards if you use Force. You got Force Throw, making use of the full effect of it, having more Force units. You can have Cham Syndulla, where if your opponent is playing ramp, you can ramp up as well using Cham. So if I were to play Ahsoka, I would go ahead and play her with aggression as my option for her. So that is it for this video. So hopefully it's helped you understand how to build Ahsoka Tano to suit you and your playstyle. You can probably even look around and see if you can find some lists online, even on like SWUDB. And yeah, that is it for today. So remember to like, comment, and subscribe to help out the channel, because we're on our way to 2,000 subs and we're just under 50 subs away. And if you're interested in the next one, we're going to go with Kanan and Jarrus tomorrow, so look out for that. Bye for now.